Right, well, thank you everyone for turning out tonight, because this is a really good turnout. And the other thing I want to thank Spokes for is the past 20 years. Because when you look at Edinburgh, there have been some improvements, just nowhere near enough. And I've been very keen to work with Spokes throughout my time as a political representative. I was in the first term of the Scottish Parliament, and my time, it was a culture shock, I think it's fair to say, for the transport officials to have somebody in the brief who wanted to do more on active travel, whether it was walking and cycling, and that transport shouldn't just be about roads, it should be about buses and trains and active travel at the grassroots level, because 2/3 of our journeys are actually relatively short journeys which lend themselves to cycling and walking. So I've always wanted the Scottish Parliament to be the vehicle for us to be doing more on cycling and to learn from other countries, and particularly to promote active travel. So I'm pleased that we've still got the Safer Streets Walking and Cycling Fund in place. It's been the capacity to have guaranteed money throughout the period, but we need to invest more. And that's why I think, in terms of the economy, in terms of our environment, and in terms of climate change, it's absolutely imperative that we spend more money on active travel. Now, this is the Spokes audience, but we need to make sure that it's active travel across the whole city. So for me, the economy is absolutely crucial. If you look at a lot of the research that's been done, it actually promotes the retailing industry in the city. It's good for tourism, and it's the whole cycle tourism agenda, I think we're still at the early days at in Scotland. There's a huge amount more in terms of leisure, in terms of us as people start retiring, but there's also a real opportunity. We're not seizing the day in terms of people coming to Scotland, so I'd like us to do more across the country. Physical activity, several speakers have mentioned that already. The levels of obesity we've got, the ambition of cycling from the early age right through your life is what we need to do. I mean, I find an irony, I'm cycling a lot more now than I did when I was younger, and it's partly because for me it's a lot more practical, and there are more routes that make it more attractive to me. And in the end, if somebody like me isn't prepared to cycle in Edinburgh, how are we going to get moving forward? So there is a thing about trying to encourage people to cycle to work and make workplaces much more friendly. But the other side of that is to change our urban realm, and we need to put much more emphasis on planning, and that's where some of the toughest lobbying comes in from Spokes, because you don't have much time to respond. And I think we need to think more strategically, and for the next term of the Parliament, I think we need to integrate cycling with transport and planning, because the planning side is absolutely crucial. There are planning decisions made incrementally every day of the week where we could have got a better outcome. Now, I want to just finally just mention climate change. It is a no-brainer. Cycling and walking are the most environmentally friendly modes of transport. But if we can integrate them into buses, and if we can integrate them into rail, then you enable people to make their whole journeys low carbon. And that is the trick that, as others have mentioned already, we're not currently achieving. The other thing I want to mention briefly is the Spokes ambition of better conditions for everyday journeys by bike, particularly in Edinburgh. There's a couple of areas where I would like us to focus on. We have got the level of 9% in the council's budget, but as Dave mentioned at the start, what's happening to council budgets has got the capacity to set us back for years. So what we're saying in the election as a Labour Party is we're going to ask people to make an extra contribution, to make sure we can still invest in education, and to make sure we can invest in our councils. We're going to ask people to pay a little bit more on income tax. We're going to ask people to put 1 pence onto their income tax. We'll protect people on less than 20 grand, but that will enable us to keep that work going at the local level. I know that the council's protected its cycling budget as 9% of the transport budget, but that budget is under pressure. And councillors are having to make horrible decisions between social care, education, cycling. We need to give them a slightly better choice, and that's why we would want to increase income tax. And we also wouldn't cut back on APD. Air passenger duty benefits the wealthiest in our society, and it will add more flights, which is bad for climate change. So in the end, we need to do more in the Parliament, and I think we need stronger political leadership. The last 5 years have on some levels been a missed opportunity. There has been good cross-party work, I don't disagree with that, but you've got an SNP government with a majority, a working majority, And who are the opposition in that Parliament? Well, Alison and the Greens, there's the Liberals, there's myself, we've even got Tories are interested in cycling. We collectively could do more. What is stopping the SNP government? So let's make the next 5 years of this Scottish Parliament better in terms of investment, and make sure that our local authorities are not just encouraged but are empowered, and that the Scottish Government works with clear political leadership. When you visit places like Cumbernauld, they've got a fantastic network that we could be using for getting people to work. If you visit Glasgow, the fact that Glasgow now wants to compete with Edinburgh, I think is fantastic. Let's have our local authorities competing to do better on cycling and learning from each other. That's why the Exemplar project is good, so that we've got both the incremental, little bits of change here and there, but we've also got strategic routes that will transform the opportunities for people, whether it's going to work, to school, to leisure, to the shops. We need to make cycling the normal choice alongside walking for our everyday lives. That will deliver us big social justice benefits, it will improve people's health, it will be good for the whole country. So let's get to it. Thank you very much.